What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor live stream. This one is kind of like a special event. I'm not going to lie. Quick little backstory. I recently had this gentleman on my podcast. And when I tell you he was a wealth of information, I said, you got to come back and share your wisdom with my YouTube and my live stream audience. So today we are going to be talking about controlling your fear, because that's that one thing that really holds us back. And he's going to go into, now mind you, here's a man that's been in the game for 30, 40 plus years. I mean, this guy, again, is a wealth of information and just has tremendous experience behind him. And you guys know that I just don't let anybody up here to speak up. And when I tell you, you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised with the takeaways. And the one thing that I do want you guys to do is interact with us, because he is here to answer questions. He's here to engage, and he is a phenomenal speaker. So without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Richard Flint. How are you today, my friend?
I am alive, healthy, and full of energy.
Love it. And you got your fancy shirt, like always.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, Henry, I'm known for two things. I'm known for my shirts, and I'm known for my my shoes.
Ooh.
I used to wear suits all the time.
Uh-huh.
And one day I was in Las Vegas speaking at a convention, and I walked into this men's shop, and I saw this shirt, and I thought, ooh, I love the colors in that thing because I love color. And so I bought it, and the next day I thought, you know what? I'm going to experiment. So I wore it on stage, and everybody just was wowed by the shirt. So that started a journey of collecting material. And then as I've traveled the world, people have heard about my shirts. So, like when I was in South Africa recently, they presented me with material for 5 shirts. And so every one of my shirts is a one of a kind, and it's made specially for me. And then I was going through the airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this lady who was boogieing down the the, the hall, dragging a big suitcase, tripped me, and
Stop.
I fell. And what the result was, I broke my little toe.
Oof.
And so the doctors told me, we can put a cast on it, but it has to go almost to your knee.
Mm.
And I said, we're not doing that. He said, well, you can't wear the dress shoes you wear because you have them made for you.
Mm.
So I went to a place called Fit to Run, and Henry, I bought me 21 pairs of tennis shoes to go with every outfit that I have. So now I'm known for my shirts and for my shoes because it plays into my philosophy of life. Why spend your energy being a carbon copy when you're the original?
Mm.
And
I love
I
that.
think sometimes we're afraid to be authentic.
Mm.
And I find that with people is that they live their life sometimes feeling they have to prove their self. And those are old tapes.
Mm.
I know I went through it. I felt that for years I had to prove myself because of the 3 messages that my adopted mother gave me before she put me out on a street corner when I was 16, telling me that I was the stupidest kid she'd ever met. I would never amount to anything in life,
Mm.
and that her greatest day would be the day that I am no longer in her house. And when I was 16, uh, I was told I had to get a job. So I was working at a grocery store, paying room and board to my mother. And when I was 16, been that for 2 weeks, my dad drove up as he always did to pick me up that night. And when he stepped out of the car, he was carrying a suitcase. And he walked over where I was and set the suitcase down and told me that mom had decided that no longer could I live in her house. And my dad hugged me, and you could feel the stress, and you could feel the tears.
Mm.
And he said, "Son, I don't know what to do, but I want you to always know that I love you very much." And with that, he got back in the car and he drove off. And Next memory I have in my life is a gentleman grabbed me by the shoulders and squeezing me and screaming at me, "Get out of the street."
Mm,
Because I'm watching my dad drive out of my life. And my thought is, if you love me, how can you do this?
mm,
Didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't stand on the street corner the rest of my life. So I went into downtown Ardmore, Oklahoma. I went to the hotel. I checked in. They gave me a key. I went up to the seventh floor, never turned the lights on, and walked across the room and opened the window and sat out on the ledge, making a decision. Do you live or do you die? Because I understand, Henry, I understand people who commit suicide. The only human that can take their own life is a person who feels that if they're not here, they would never be missed. And when they get that feeling, there's no purpose to their life. And one of the things that is missing so much today is people having a purpose that they can live by,
mm,
a reason for life.
mm.
And, you know, I know on the podcast we did, and I got to tell you, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that. Uh,
Oh,
that
thank
was
you.
an amazing conversation. And you are a great host.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you're good with questions, and I love that. But one of the things I talked about there is the fact that the challenge for most people is they don't know how to live.
Mm,
They know how to exist. And there's a huge difference between living and existing,
mm,
because to live, you got to have a purpose. You got to know what you really want in life.
yeah.
And you got to know why you really want it. And those questions are frightening because those are questions from the inside out.
Hmm.
And most people who exist, they live from the outside in. And the difference being, if I'm living from the outside in, I give you control of my life.
Yep.
You own me. And I live by your script. I become a puppet in your play. And you dictate whom I can become.
Mm,
But if I'm living from the inside out, I'm in control of my life. And I want to put this out here so that I can help your audience get a deeper understanding of fear. Is that from the outside in, I live in a world that is controlled by doubt, worry, and uncertainty. And here's the interesting psychological part of this.
mm,
If I live by doubt, worry, and uncertainty, every day of my life is filled with fear.
yeah.
And that fear is there because I live every day reacting to what if, because I don't have a purpose, I don't have a direction. But if I'm living from the inside out, every day I get up and I live because I have a belief in me. I trust me.
Yeah.
I have faith in me. So rather than having that negative fear, I have a positive confidence.
Mm,
And if you really got to know me, you'd find that I'm probably one of the most positive people you'll ever meet in your life, one of the most confident people you'll ever have in your life. I'll tell you something, Henry, and people laugh at me when I say this, but it's true. I throw parties, and I'm the only one I invite. God, they're great parties.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I
But
love
when I'm living outside in, here's what happens. I live in a world of fear. And from the day that I was born to the day that I die, to the day that you were born to the day that you die, you're going to live with six fears. We all share them.
it.
And the interesting thing, Henry, is that one of these six is the most powerful fear in your life. And if you can ever find and understand your number one fear, you can control the rest of them.
Okay.
But if you never understand your number one fear, the rest of those will eat you alive. And I get people who tell me all the time, well, I just need to eliminate fear. You can't eliminate fear. Fear is an emotion. And people have got to grasp you cannot eliminate emotions, but you can control them.
Okay.
Okay. And the more you work to eliminate them, the bigger they become in your life.
Oh, interesting. It's like pouring water on a gremlin.
Yeah.
Right?
But let me walk you through the 6 fears.
Yes.
And they're in no certain order.
Okay.
The fear of the unknown. And I see that in a lot of people, Henry,
Okay.
is that every day their life is a circle of sameness. And because they live in that doubt, that worry, and that uncertainty, the unknown is frightening to them. And the thing that's also interesting is that they feel that in that circle of sameness, they're safe. But they're not. They're not safe.
And what? Why not? Because I'm my head's going one way, and I'm thinking, no, everybody wants to stay in their comfort zone because they do think it's, nothing's going to hurt me here. But what is actually hurting them?
They're stuck. They live their life repeating their yesterday. They're not learning from it. And people need to understand that yesterday is a reference library, not a room to live in. And in yesterday, there are 2 sets of filing cabinets. There's one set that has all the files of your hurts, your pain, your disappointments, what you consider failure, your fears. And those all have, that cabinet has all those files in it. And then there's another filing cabinet over here that has all my successes in it. And it's everything that I've achieved. It's everything that allows me to believe, trust, and have faith in me. And my view of life depends on what file cabinet I go to. And if I keep going to that file cabinet of fear, that file cabinet of disappointment, frustrations, then that's all I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. And that fear says, hey, why challenge life? You're okay. Look at your life. You're doing good. You're not doing what your life could be if you're traveling the circle of sameness.
Yeah. The other thought that I had was when you're in that zone, right? Life's passing you by. Technology and opportunity and all of that is just whizzing by you. And I think maybe everybody has this assumption that like, oh, I'll always have tomorrow. But what about the 14-year-old boy that has 6 months to live because he was diagnosed with leukemia? What about the person that just found out that they're terminally ill? Like what do you say to them? And so I say this not to frighten you, but to kind of like put things into perspective. Like if you want to stay in your comfort zone, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be whizzing by you that you may lose that opportunity if you don't get back in the car, turn it on and get going. Because I'll give you a quick example. My father, I love him to death, but man, is he working from and he doesn't watch these or listen to these. I hope not. But if you are, listen, I don't mean to put you on blast like this, Pops, but there's some things that I've been told recently that to me, they don't add up anymore because that's an outdated operating system. Yes, I used to think that everybody was out to get me. I used to think that I couldn't trust anybody. I used to think that I couldn't be friends with my neighbors because they would be asking of me too much if I got too close to them. That's an operating system that was given to me years ago. And I just decided to push update a few years back. And so those things that he says to me, they don't even stick anymore. But the problem is he's still there. And maybe it's not a problem, Richard. Maybe it's not. Maybe he likes it there. And that's his safe zone, and he doesn't want to change because he's 80 years old. And that's okay for him, but not for me. So I just look at that and like, I just don't see any upgrades in certain people's lives, and him included. And I shake my head. And I honestly, Richard, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Because there's that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but then you also say, you know, you might not have that opportunity again, so you better speak up now. So I'm very torn when it comes to that stuff. So anyway, not to get too off track, but to your point.
Well, first thing, with the age that he is whom he will be the rest of his life.
Okay.
Okay. Change is a word that is outside his vocabulary now.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing is that one of the things that fear does is it blinds you to opportunity. Because when I feel safe in my circle of sameness, I don't look for anything better. And then what happens later on is that as someone else demonstrates life to me, I live with regret. I could have done that. I could have had that. But I needed to feel safe and secure in my life. So I chose to stay in my circle of sameness. And in there, I exist. I don't live, because life is about living forward. So that fear of the unknown is huge, and it's huge in today's world.
Yeah.
The second of the 6 fears is the fear of abandonment. That if I leave where I am, I'm going to be alone. You know, you have no idea how many people, and especially ladies, I have sat in the counseling room with. And I'll give you one illustration. There was Mary who came to me, and this was her 3rd visit to me, and she looked like this, the same way she looked when she first walked into my office 2 visits before. Her eye was black, her face was swollen. You could see a handprint on her face.
Oh, geez.
And Mary lived with a very abusive male. And I asked her, Mary, why do you stay? Because he loves me. Mary, what makes you think he loves you? Look at what he does, but he always says he's sorry and that he loves me. I said, Mary, when are you going to stop lying to yourself? Why do you stay? And the tears just started flowing. And she said, Richard, I stay because I don't want to be alone. And it's amazing how many people stay in environments that are so unhealthy for the fear of being abandoned. And if you and I don't have that self-belief, self-trust, that faith, and we give our life to other people, what we don't understand is from the outside in, we attract people who see our weakness and who are there to use our weakness to manipulate. I tell people all the time, if you want to know what you think of yourself, take the 5 closest people that are in your life that you're not related to, can't be related to them. Take the 5 closest people in your life and look at them. Look at their behavior, because they are you.
Wow.
Most of us stay where we have the fake feeling that we're being loved from the fear of abandonment. And so what we do is we create our own prison, and we're both the prisoner and the warden.
Yeah.
But we stay there because of the fear that no one will love us. The third fear, huge, and one of the biggest dangerous lessons that we have been taught for years is the fear of failure.
Mm.
I mean, I think we've all heard people talk about failure. I mean, I've stood in the shadows of a stage that I was about to step onto to speak, and listen to the person in front of me. And several times I've heard them talk about, you don't want to fail. That it's all makes it sound like that failure is a permanent F brand on your forehead.
Mm.
And I want to run out on the stage and I want to grab them and I want to tell them, listen to what you're saying because you're wrong. You're teaching these people a dangerous philosophy. I believe, and it is very strong within me, that all emotions travel in threes. I think the human mind sees in triangles.
Okay.
And, for years, what have we taught? We've taught success and failure. So if you're not a success, you're a failure.
Yeah.
And what's happened is that we've pushed people to live in this fear of I can't, or this fear of I can't make a mistake. I can't do anything wrong. So what do? I hide in the shadows and not become the person I can be. And what I'd like for your listeners to understand is there is a third word that we don't talk about because there is success, there is failure, and there is defeat.
Mm.
And defeat is when you give up.
Yeah.
But people ask me all the time, well, how would you define failure then? I tell them it's simple. Failure is one word, fertilizer. That's all failure is.
I love it. I love it.
It's
Yeah.
fertilizer because, I have quite a few of my mentoring students because I take on 10 people a year and I am their private mentor for 1 year in their life. And it's interesting because several of them are farmers. And I mean, they have huge farms.
Mm.
And we talk about fertilizer. What's the purpose of fertilizer? It's
Right.
to prepare the ground for growth.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of failure? It's to prepare your life for growth.
Wow.
I would bet you in your life, and I've got 27 cents laying over there on the counter, and I would bet you my 27 cents that in your life you have failed more than once.
Oh, for sure.
Did you stay there?
No,
Why?
because my fault. Because it was uncomfortable for me to sit in that.
Yeah. So you took what created the failure and you turned it into success because every time you fail and you stand up,
Yeah.
that's success because every time you stand up, you're better than the person that fell down.
Right. Right.
But if I stay down, what happens to me?
Yeah.
I give up life
Yeah.
and I have to exist in my fear of failure.
Yeah. So here's something that I'm teaching my 4-year-old son because he's really soaking up everything, and he'll continue to soak up everything that mommy and daddy tell him, right? But he gets frustrated when he can't get something right, whether it's coloring in between coloring within the lines, getting that Lego just right, whatever. And the one thing that I told him was, when you fail at something, there's a lesson there. And that opens up another opportunity for you to learn, for you to grow, for you to become. School, and I hate to say this, but school has taught us if you get the wrong answer, you're a failure. You lost at that opportunity. Where in entrepreneurship, failure is looked at as a positive thing, right? It's when you fail, you're growing, right? So I'm teaching him at a very young age that when you fail, that's a good thing because that's going to open up another opportunity. and it allows you to get stronger, because you're not going to do what didn't work again, right? You're going to try something else. You're going to try something different. And it's crazy because at 4.5, he's going to be 5 in a couple of weeks. He's getting it. Like you could tell that he shrugs failure off as fast as I could take my socks off, versus me growing up. When I failed, I sat in it for weeks and months and I lost that time. I'm not getting that time back. So that hit me right between the eyes. What you just said about failure and how it's fertilizer, because I've never thought of it that way. And that's a brilliant way of thinking of it.
Yeah. And let me say this. Failure is the result of you not doing something that you know you should do, but you choose not to do it.
Right.
I mean, I'm a firm believer in this, Henry. Everybody knows the answers to their questions. They just don't want to do it.
Nope.
And I also believe this. You don't do anything in your life without giving yourself permission to do it. So if I want life to pull the rug out from under me, what do? I give life permission to do that through my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is, I can get up and vacuum that rug and stand back on top of it.
Yep.
Because failure is an opportunity. It's not a disease.
Right.
It's not the end of everything. It gives you the choice to get back up with a lesson you can apply, or to stay down and stand in the corner or sit in the corner, sucking your thumb and blaming life for what you don't have. I'll tell you something, Henry. I could have blamed my mother for my life.
Right.
I could have gone and sat in the corner and said, you know what? She's right. I'll never do anything in my life. She's right. I'm stupid. She's right. I don't deserve to be here. But for years, I lived with that until God put 3 men through my life. Every time I wanted to give up, someone appeared in my life to say, I'm not going to let you.
Yeah.
And I believe this. There are people in our life, when we're standing on the ledge, there are people in our life who are there to help us.
Absolutely.
But they're not going to come and ask us to let them help us. We're going to have to reach out to them.
That's right.
And that's one of the fears in life. The next of our 6 fears.
Yep. What are we on? 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
My number 1 fear for years, the fear of rejection.
It's biggie.
You see, my natural mother in New Orleans was a prostitute. I was the result of a one-night stand she had with a man. She didn't want me, so she gave me away. I was adopted into the home, and the only reason I was adopted was because my dad wanted a son. They had 3 daughters, all adopted from different families. But my mother didn't like me because my dad wanted to spend time with me, so I was her enemy.
Interesting.
So it reached a place where she no longer could stand looking at me. So I was put out on the street.
Yeah. At 16.
Yeah. I mean, and you know this, as a male at 16, you're probably 12.
Yeah. But I'm thinking, when I was 16, it was 1996. When you were 16, it was a different world. There was no cell phones. There wasn't internet. There wasn't Airbnbs and all this stuff. There wasn't any of that. So how frightening that must have been.
And the way that I overcame that, because when I was a sophomore in college, I went to confront my mom and dad because I live with this philosophy: anything you don't confront, you validate. And if I don't confront it, then I give it power.
Yep.
And the people I don't confront, I give them power over me. So anything I don't confront, I validate. So I decided I had to go and confront my mom and dad. I had to know what went wrong. And I remember it was 62 miles from my dormitory room to my mom and dad's house. And I knocked on the screen door, and my dad opened the door. And when he saw me, he turned as white as a sheet of paper. And I said, Dad, I need to talk to you and Mom. And my dad never even bothered to unlock the screen door, Henry. He stepped through the screen door.
Mm.
And with one hug, he told me everything that was pinned up inside of him.
Wow.
The guy literally carried me into the living room, and he called for my mother to see who was here. And my mother walked from the kitchen, and when she got between the door frame between the kitchen and the living room, she stopped. And when she looked at me, never took her eyes off of me, took her left hand, reached around behind her, untied her apron, let it drop to the floor, and reached over, picked up her purse, took out her car keys, walked out the back door, and drove off. And I never saw her again.
That's it.
But that was my day of freedom, Henry.
Yeah.
Because I was living to try to prove to my mother she was wrong. I was begging her to love me. And when we feel rejection, we beg people to love us.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I give them my life.
That's it.
And when I walked out of that house and I got in my car and I drove, I had this sense of freedom. And I'll tell you something else about rejection. And I hope your listeners understand this. I could not reject you if I tried. Rejection is not what people do to you. It's what you tell people it is okay to do to you.
Say that again.
Rejection is not what people do to you. It's what you tell people it is okay to do to you.
Let that one sink in, guys.
Yeah, because that's pretty heavy.
Yes.
The fifth of our fears is the fear of loss. With everything that you and I want to do with our life, there's a price tag. There's a price tag to what you do with your life. There's a price tag that with what I do with my life. And what I have found is that if I fear the price tag, I never step forward. Yeah. And this is why so many people who want to be an entrepreneur, it's why they fail in business. Because they don't have that belief, that trust, and their faith in themselves, and they fear the unknown. So they keep talking about what they're going to do. But because they fear what it's going to cost.
Yep.
And it's not financial as much as it is mentally and emotionally. And then the sixth fear, number one with young people today, from my research, okay, is the fear of success. Most young people don't know what success is. They know what it is to be given. But many of them don't understand what it is to achieve.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think that parents can give their kids too much. I'll give you one story. I had a dad bring his 10-and-a-half-year-old son to me. And he said, Richard, he said, I need help with your kid, with my son. You got to help me. Now, get the picture. 10-and-a-half years of age. Every Monday morning, in his hand, he's given his weekly allowance, $500 a week.
Okay.
Want to be adopted?
That's a lot of garbage cans to be taken out.
Yeah. But by Wednesday, the kid's broke.
10 years old? 10-and-a-half years old.
And he didn't, it was no drugs, no alcohol, but what he did do is he bought his friends.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the dad said, help me. And I said, no. I'm not going to help you with the kid. Let's you and I talk about it. Why are you doing this to your kid? because you're teaching him a very dangerous message that life is about what you're given, not what you earn.
Hmm.
So anything that's not given to me, the price tag is too great.
Yeah.
And so there's that fear that we don't understand success. And we're in a generational time now where it's you owe me. I was on a plane recently, and the young kid next to me, I was working on my computer, and I was working on a program, and he got to reading my screen. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm writing a program I'm going to do." He said, "Wow." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm looking for a job." I said, "Have you found one yet?" He said, "No, no one will pay me what I'm worth."
See where this is going.
I said, "Son, you need to wake up. If life is about everything that's given to me, then I don't have a life." And I'm sorry if this is too political, but I think one of the most dangerous things we did during COVID is to start paying people to stay home. Because what we did is we took away the work ethic.
Yeah. The sense of earn, sense of achievement.
And this is one of the reasons that we have this sense today of not being able to find people. Why should I work when they'll pay me to not? And we've got to rewrite the script to what success is. And to me, success is one thing. It's every day getting up and putting one foot in front of the other, moving forward. Now, I'll bet that many of your listeners can identify with one of those 6 fears.
Yeah, but what I'm curious about is you said there's one fear out of the 6 that if you can tackle that one, the other 5 will kind of rest at bay. But
Yep.
I can't figure out which one that is.
If I had 20 minutes in your life, I could ask you just a few questions, and I could find your number 1 fear.
Oh, so it changes person to person.
Yeah, it changes from person to person.
Okay, I thought that there was one.
No, no. Out of those 6, there is one personal fear
Okay.
that you have that holds you hostage.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to leave your people hanging. So the question is then, what do you do? How do you control fear?
Right.
And I think there are 4 steps.
Okay.
Number 1, you have to face the fact that you have fear.
Okay. So own it.
Own it. And if you don't face it, then you know what you do? You turn fear to fright. When I face it, fear becomes positive. When I deny it, I become afraid of it. I have to face that fear. The second step, I've got to examine, where did this fear come from?
Okay.
My fear came from my childhood.
Right.
My fear came from being abandoned and rejected. The third thing is you've got to adjust your life through improving your behavior.
Okay.
Because if I adjust my life through improving my behavior, then what I can do is I can learn to step beyond that fear by making behavioral adjustments.
Okay.
And then the fourth thing is you've got to refuse to continue to let fear own you.
Okay. Let me go back one and let's talk about this behavior part. That sounds easier said than done, because
You think so?
here I know you're being sarcastic, but I think people will read tons of books and they'll watch their YouTube videos and they'll listen to their podcasts and so on, and then it just stops there. There's no action being taken. And that's where you just sit in that holding pattern and you stay complacent. But if you get out, and it doesn't need to be this drastic thing, maybe you just take that one little step that turns into another little step, that turns into another little step. And now next thing you know, you're across the pond or across the river. That's where you really start to see change. And I think people are afraid to make that first step. And that's where they get stuck in their behaviors is my point.
Yep. My biggest selling book, and I've written 19 books. My biggest selling book is entitled Behavior Never Lies.
Yes.
The whole premise of this, Henry, is that truth is not what you say, it's your behavior.
Yes.
Confusion, conflict in life comes when we say one thing, but we do another.
Right.
And the essence of truth is behavior. And I ask people all the time, do you want people to be totally honest with you? 9 out of 10? No.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, again, a lot of people can't be alone with themselves, because alone with yourself, you can't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Alone with yourself, you always have to be truthful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where personal branding ties into this whole conversation is
Yep.
when you have an understanding of who you are and who you're not, and you own that.
Yeah. And this is why the one thing that I would wish for everyone who's listening is that you understand the greatest statement of respect that will ever be paid to you is when you have a positive presence that is present when you're not present.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what I live for every day.
Yeah.
I told you on the podcast that around my house here in 3 different places, I have this little message that I read every morning. And it prepares me mentally and emotionally for my day. Somebody's going to need me today.
Yep. Yep.
And I always want to make sure that I am available and present, which means I have to continue to challenge myself.
Right.
And it's why I write for 2 hours every morning of my life. It's why I do the research I do.
Yeah.
Is because I think that life takes on a deeper meaning when we can bring value to the life that we have while we're on this earth.
Yeah.
And there's a question on the screen too, which is interesting. Is it fair to say that most fears are borrowed fears? No. Most fears are collected fears, not borrowed. They're fears that we have collected through the situation and the events of our life. And I'll take it one step deeper. Anything in life that you don't complete will have a fear attached to it.
Interesting. Expand on that, because that's I can only get half of that. I don't understand that. I think I got it, but I'm not sure.
If I don't complete something,
Right.
it stays with me.
Okay.
Okay. And how many conversations have we had with people who talk about what they should have done? Or they've created a hostage in their life for themselves because they didn't complete anything. And someday, somehow, we'll talk about this, but there's a difference between finishing and completing.
Okay.
Finish, I take it as far as I can take it at this moment. Completing is it's done and I can let go. And when I do not complete things, it always comes back to haunt me. And many times I don't complete because I get into the habit of playing what if.
Yeah.
And what if is an open door to fear.
Yeah. 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 That is huge. Any other questions from the audience? There's quite a few comments and coming in from different channels and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions for Richard, drop them in the comments, and we'll go from there. Well, here's a response. Wouldn't collected be borrowed? They're not ours, but given because of situations.
Well, they're not borrowed because if I borrow them, I give it back.
That's what I was thinking.
I keep them.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And fear is a collection of emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get
I
it.
own my fears. They're with me. But again, let's understand this. Fear is only negative when it causes you to live outside in, where I'm fearful of being the authentic me.
Yep.
Fear is positive because it slows me down when I'm living inside out. And I have that belief, that trust, and that faith in me. Because what fear does sometimes is it slows my pace down. If it's outside in, fear speeds my pace up.
Yeah. I get it. That makes total sense. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? I mean, it's very rare you'd ever get to ask me anything.
I know. No, one of the things, so just to recap, let's go over the 6 fears real quick. So the fear of,
The fear of the unknown,
yep,
the fear of abandonment,
yep,
the fear of failure,
yep.
fear of rejection,
Mhm.
fear of loss, and fear of success.
Okay. So I'm going to ask my audience, out of those 6 fears, which one shows up for you the most? And if you're brave, you could drop them in the comments. If you want to share, please feel free. This is a safe place. Um, and once you identify it, how are you going to treat it moving forward now that you know what you know based on Richard's conversation today? That's your homework. That's what I want you guys to wrestle with for the rest of the week. I know it's Thursday, but I want you to think about that, because there's a few that I have. One being rejection. That was a rough one for me. I'll tell you a funny story. Remember those little they made a couple movies out of them, the troll movies, like with the little plastic thing with the funky hair. Remember those things, those trolls? I'll never forget this. I was in 5th grade. So how old were we in 5th grade? 11, maybe. I had this crush on this girl. And I thought, if I buy her a treasure troll, she's going to want to be my boyfriend. So I go out with my mother. We go to Child World. I don't know if you remember what that was, but it was like Toys R Us. And I make her go and buy me a troll doll. And I made her wrap it in this little gift thing. And so I bring it to school the next day. And I was shaking in my boots, Richard. I walk up to her and I said, "This is for you." Now, mind you, I'm thinking maybe I'm 5th grade. So help me out, guys. 11 years old, 8 years old. My wife would know if she was listening. She takes the bag, looks inside of it, drops it on the ground, turns around, and takes off like a bat out of hell, and left me there with the troll doll, speechless. That rejection literally haunted me my entire life. My entire life. And that's what led to relationship issues. That's why I never really had a girlfriend until I was in my late 20s. It all went back from that silly, it's silly now, but it was traumatizing then, right? But that rejection bled into different parts of my life, like being on a sales call with a prospect and being afraid to talk about the price because I thought that they were going to reject it. And people feel this stuff, right? So what did I have to do? I had to let that go. I had to own that. I had to go back and say that was okay. And that taught you a valuable lesson, right? What was that lesson? And I sat with that rejection, even though it was from now it's 30 years ago, right? But I sat with it and I dealt with it. And now I realize that, like, I'm not 8 years old again. I'm not bringing people treasure trolls and getting rejected. That situation is not this situation. Look how much more wise you are. And it's like that. It's like simple, instantaneous. I'm like over it in 2 seconds. And that's what gets me through. And then the other thing that I think about, and this may be, I don't know where this comes from, but when I get into fear mode, whether I'm in a place that's unfamiliar, and like when I go to these conferences, when I first get there, I'm not going to lie, I get a little, I'm a little anxious because there's a lot of people and I don't know anybody. When I usually go to places where I know people, and I get anxious, but then I open up. But I'll never forget this one time. My son was young; he was maybe 2 years old, and I was walking into this Chamber of Commerce event, and there was this was a big one. There was about 150 people there, and I walked in and I got that nervousness again. Like, I don't know anybody except for the president, and like, this is weird. I'm going to be sitting at a bar by myself. I'll be sitting at a cocktail table by myself, and it's just going to look really awkward because I don't know anybody, and maybe I should just leave and turn around and go now. And as I was walking up the steps to this country club, I said, is that the type of father that your son wants in his life? That was the question that I asked myself as I was walking up those steps. Clearly, the answer was no. But that question made me walk it through those doors and get over that fear. And literally, once I walked in, I actually did see a couple people I knew, and boom, that fear was gone in a split second. So I share this with you guys because I wanted to let you guys know that everybody struggles with one of these 6 fears, including myself. I think what happens is we're afraid to share some of these to the world, and we hold that stuff in, just like Richard's dad held all those emotions in for all those years, and then finally got a chance to let it all out. And I bet you that was probably one of the best days of his life, being able to do that. So I want you to think about that in your lives, and ask yourself the tough questions to help you overcome those fears. So I'll pass it over to you, Rich. I usually don't talk that long, but I do. But
Your story is a great illustration
yeah,
of anything I don't confront, I validate.
there you go.
That troll in that bag on the floor was a trigger point for you that stayed with you in your life until you decided one day, enough. And there's 2 types of enough: enough with a semicolon and enough with an exclamation point. And you reached the enough with an exclamation point.
That's it.
And when you did that, you confronted it. And with that confrontation, you took away the power of that experience from yesterday to continue to hang on to you.
Bingo.
And the other thing people need to realize is that you can't run from fear. Okay. You have to admit you're human and fear is an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is control the fear. You know, I've been on the international lecture circuit for 35 years. I've had audiences as small as 5 to 37,000.
Wow.
And people ask me, with all that you do, because I was doing before COVID, I was doing 120 speaking engagements all over the world each year.
Right.
People ask me, do you still get fearful when you speak? And I tell them, yeah, because that fear of rejection comes back up within me. What if they don't like me?
And how do you handle that?
Well, I have my own little technique, and that is when I go out on that stage, every presentation I do, I open with the same first, basically 60 seconds.
Okay.
And that calms me down.
Mm.
because fear can hold us hostage when it turns to fright. When I'm frightened, I won't face things. But when you face it, fear then becomes a friend, not an enemy.
Mm.
And fear is an important part of life when it's positive because it does slow you down.
Yeah. Perfect example. I'm building another business with a partner, and there's a lot of risk involved here. And we've both shelled out thousands of dollars, and this business is it doesn't even have a license yet. We're opening up a cannabis dispensary in New Jersey, retail. And we got to a conversation yesterday where we have like 100 feet to go to the finish line, and there's really not much we can do at that point until we get the license. And there was this, I don't know if it was fear, I don't know what it was, but the first part of the conversation, it was, you know what, let's not do that last 100 feet. Let's just wait. And that last 100 feet was worth $12,500. Think about this. So then we had that conversation. And then after I got off the phone, I said, we've both spent way more than that over the past year. We're going to stop. And now this last 100 feet could gain us 7 to 9 weeks when it comes time to open. So are we going to stop right here after we just put in all this work up into this point and invested all this? We're going to stop. And we're splitting that 12.5 3 different ways, a couple different percentages, but it's not like we both had to come out of pocket 12.5. It was like 1,500 and like $3,000, whatever. Right. And then, the deposit, that's in full, right? We only had to come up with half of that to get the ball rolling. Right. So we're talking $3,000. Right. And I said to myself, I have to speak up here. I can't let this ride, because what are we afraid of here? The last 12.5 that's going to gain, So I call the guy back. I call the one guy that was still hesitant, and I said exactly what I just told you. I said, we came this far. We're gonna stop 100 feet before the finish line. Now, granted, anything past that finish line that we decide to invest in, then that's just reckless and irresponsible. I said, but we still have this amount to go, which is reasonable. And it's going to save us 7 to 9 weeks on the back end. And he said, let's get it done. And so we're going to move forward and get that interior design done. But we got to stop there because we can't break ground until we get a license, right? But there was things going down inside of me when we were having that conversation. There was things that were going inside of me saying, you know what? I don't want to rough the boat here. I don't want to rock the boat. Fine. I'll concede. Fine. I'll do what everybody else wants to do. There was 2 other people on the call. And I got off that call just uneasy. And then I called the one guy back individually. I called the other guy back individually. And I said, we got to get this done. Had I been scared of rejection or scared of the response, I would have woke up today and we would have been 7 to 9 weeks behind schedule in my eyes come license time. And I wasn't going to let that happen. And so luckily everybody agreed, and we're moving forward with the interior design of this. So again, just another story I wanted to share with you. I got to get better with my storytelling. I got to get it tighter. Right, Rich? I got to get it tighter, but I wanted to get that point across.
Hey, just for information, let me define the word confrontation for people. Okay. Because confrontation has a very negative connotation to it.
True.
But all confrontation is the skill to resolve. That's all it is. Anything you don't confront, you validate. So validation gives it continuation.
Mm.
So all confrontation is the skill to resolve.
Mm.
And there's so many things that hang around in our life because in your story, that's what I was hearing. You led toward resolution
Yeah.
to resolve.
Yeah.
But people are fearful of confrontation because they associate it with criticism. Criticism is when I attack you because you're wrong and I'm right.
Mm.
Confrontation is when I come with you because I both want us to be right.
That's another big one. Man, there's so many nuggets here, Richard. I gotta watch this one again.
You're fun, my friend.
Listen, this is I have so much fun with you, and I could listen to you for days. So this won't be our last conversation, our last live stream, our last podcast. I have so much fun with you as well, and the feeling is mutual. Again, guys, Richard came to me through a podcast recommendation. Somebody reached out and said, "I think this guy would be great for your show," and I did a little research and I said, I would love to chat with him. And here we are on our second, conversation. And that's why I tell all you guys, don't don't judge a book by its cover. Don't assume. Give that opportunity a chance, because look, Richard and I will be friends forever because I've learned so much from him in just 2 sit downs, and we're talking about 90 minutes of life, right, Bob? Bob, that was a Freudian slip. Anybody ever tell you you remind them of Bob Proctor?
Oh, yeah. Bob was a good friend.
I bet. But you remind me of him so much, and you even sound like when I listen to him on audio, like you even sound like him a little. And I was like, wow, never got a chance to meet Bob. He seemed like a phenomenal individual. Watched a lot of his stuff, listened to a lot of his stuff. But you're the closest thing to him that I've ever met personally, and I just want to say thank you for spending your time with me today.
Can I share with them how people can reach me?
Yeah, please.
There are two ways. My website is richardflint.com. It's Flint, richardflint.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you have questions for me, you can reach me at richardflint.com. And just understand it might take me a day or two to get back to you because of the volume of emails I get, but I answer every one of them personally.
Yep.
I'd like to offer you an invitation to join us every Friday at 10 a.m. We do an open mic where we have a question, and then I open the mics just for people to talk. And you would just go to richardflint.com/discussion. Our question for tomorrow is, what lessons did your parents instill in you that have made you the person that you are today? And we have a fun time because this Friday group is like a family. Saturday is my monthly webinar. I do a webinar every month, and our topic for this Saturday at 10 a.m. is understanding the power of letting go. Why do you hang on to things you know you need to let go of? And how do you learn to let go of them?
Mm.
And I'd love to hear from you. richardflint.com, see what we're doing. We've got one of our small group retreats coming up in September on learning to control procrastination, which is the number one dysfunctional behavior that most of you have in your life. You can't eliminate it, but you can control it. It's right there on the website. It's the first thing you'll see, September 22 to 25 here in West Palm Beach, Florida. Check me out. I am worth getting to know.
I love you, dude. You are awesome. Next time I'm down in West Palm, we're gonna grab lunch or dinner. We travel there quite often with my wife and son, and would love to meet you in person. Awesome, dude. Awesome conversation. I knew we went a little over today, but I knew everybody was gonna be be loving this. Cecilia Walker said, enjoyed this, learned a lot. Thank you. Peter said, brilliant, man, and great insight. I need more. Best live yet. Olio Loki says, I'm sorry I miss your live chats. I miss the alerts on Facebook, but keep on doing what you do. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. And there was people that were coming in and out. I was watching the numbers go up and down the whole hour. So appreciate all of you guys. Make sure that you subscribe to the channels that you're watching this through, whether it be YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. Make sure you go follow my friend Richard Flint at richardflint.com. And join his conversations, because look how much you learned today in just 105 minutes. Guess how much more you can learn as you continue to follow his journey and continue to learn from him. So, Richard, I appreciate you so much, my friend, and thanks again. And we will certainly do these more often in the near future.
I would be honored.
Love it. There you go, my friends. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll catch you on the next one real soon. Take care.
That